Two friends meet up to drink some beers and talk about past times. Not yesterday, but long ago, it's scandals, wars and crimes. From Stalin's reign to Prohibition, Tudors, Pompey, Bush and NASA's mission, Edison's bulk, Genghis Khan's rise to victory. Forget your old teacher, it's time for Pint-Sized history.
Hello again, and welcome to the last part of the Roman Republic to Empire to Fall of the Empire series that Joe is so kindly feasting upon our brains. And let me tell you, sorry, I burped there because I'm on my third long beer, which I think makes this my fourth or fifth pint, and I'm starting to feel it a little bit. So Joe is being so kind to not only bear with the listeners and teach them his eccentric knowledge of the Roman Empire, but also bear with me as I stumble and mutter for his introduction. I'm Zach.
And I'm Joe. What the fuck?
Oh god, right, we're back, and I'm fucking loving this, honestly. There is a good reason I didn't want to touch this, but I'm so glad Joe has done it, because I love Rome. Like, there is that meme, like, what's your Roman Empire?
Never been there, but loves it. Never been there. Found out in the first episode. Never been to it. I love Rome. I love it. Never visited it in his life.
So for me, my Roman Empire is probably like, the Eastern Front in World War II. But this is the Roman Empire, and I'm digging the fuck out of Joe, and I'm going to drink this lovely sip
Good.
of
I'm
beer.
glad. Well, I'm digging it as well. And I've had a lot of fun researching this. This, as I said previously, again, we're filming all of this in the same evening. So as I said for myself only a little bit ago, there's so much to discuss, so much to do with the Roman Empire, and it took me so long to research all of it. So I'm trying to pick out all the best bits I can. And I will say that for this last part, bear in mind, we've only now just got to the empire. So in the previous part, we talked about Julius Caesar's life and death. We talked about Roman legions and the Senate, and how his adoptive son, Octavian, became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. Now we're actually going to get to the stuff that's after it, the Roman Empire itself. Finally, we're going to get to it. And I will say that now there's a lot of history that I could talk about, and we've only got the next hour or so of podcast to be able to do it. So there will be many things that we'll have to gloss over a little bit, but we're going to have a lot of fun because there's a lot of really interesting tidbits to discuss.
Gloss away, King.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Well, hey, come on now, we can't say king. That is a...
Gloss away, Rex. Gloss away, Augustus.
Rex. No, they hated that. They hated Rex. They hated King. They hated Caesar.
That's why I'm calling you Rex.
I haven't told you. Here's a little tidbit I think you'll enjoy. Caesar, because of his role as a dictator, the name Caesar, of course, now in classical Latin, the letter C is pronounced K. So like you said earlier, his name is actually Caesar. Now, the word Caesar...
So he is correctly pronounced as Kaiser or Kaiser.
That's what I was going to say. Have you clocked it?
So so two things.
You've done it. You figured
firstly,
it. Oh my god, you figured it on your own. Yes, go on. That's literally what I was about to say. Go on.
So the Holy Roman Empire and the German Empire later, the leader of that is called Kaiser, as in Caesar himself.
Yes.
But then also, much more importantly than that, the Fallout New Vegas faction, Caesar's Legion.
No.
No, I'm getting into this.
No, fuck's sake.
I'm a massive Fallout. I'm a massive Fallout fan. And I've watched the TV series. I played New Vegas recently. It's an unbelievably good game. They call Caesar's Legion Caesar's Legion. They called him the Kaiser, and they're right. There's moronic wasteland dwellers who eat people. They're saying the right thing, and we're all stupid.
You were halfway there, and I don't care at all about the Fallout stuff, but you're absolutely right. The Kaisers of the Holy Roman Empire, and then the German Empire were called the Kaisers. You're absolutely right. That's spot on. I was hoping you'd notice the other thing you say when you say Caesar, and that is the word Tsar.
Oh, Tsar!
So both the Russian language and the German language took the word Caesar from the Roman dictator, because he was never the emperor, Julius Caesar, and they took that to become their own definition of the word king.
Wow.
And bear in mind, those are two languages that are not Latin, Germanic and Russian. They are not Latin languages. So that is a really interesting thing, that not only did we get July from Caesar, but we also got Germanic and Russian words from the word Julius Caesar. We're here. We're finally at the Roman Empire. Rome has an emperor, not a king, definitely not a king, but they have an emperor.
An Augustus.
This is, for the very first one, Augustus, and the rest Augustus, but he is Augustus the first. He is the first revered emperor of Rome. From the beginning of Augustus's reign, for roughly 200 years, This period of time is known as the Pax Romana, which means, in Latin,
Roman peace.
yes. Now, there are still wars abroad and revolts within. It doesn't always, it's not peace isn't a total peace, but Rome is in its golden age at this point. Roman imperialism had brought prosperity and stability. At its height, the Roman Empire's population during the Pax Romana peaked at 70 million people, which accounted...
That's an enormous amount for that time.
For that time.
So this is about
You're right.
0 BC or 20 BC?
Oh, yes.
We're still before Christ.
Yes. Augustus becomes the ruler of the Emperor of Rome in 27 BC, so 27 years before Jesus is born. But the point I'm making about this moment is that at its height, which is at some point, I think it's around 117 AD, so not this moment specifically, but around 117 AD, the borders of Rome get to their absolute fullest, and at that point, the Roman Empire's population during the Pax Romana peaked at 70 million people, which accounted for 33% of the world's population.
Jesus.
Meaning 1 in 3 people in the world were Roman at that time.
And at that height, how far east did it stretch? We know westwards, they controlled Spain, France, they controlled North Africa. Obviously, the New World hadn't been discovered yet, so there was no South America, North America. But south, we're in North Africa. We must be in the kind of Israel.
Are you sorry? What's your question? Are you asking? Are you asking
how far are its borders
Augustus?
stretching?
No, I know, but are you asking at Augustus or at its peak?
At the height of Roman borders, because
Yes, yeah, no, you're good. So I've got this written down. I'm skipping a bit ahead, but I'll just say it now. At its peak in 117 AD, the Roman Empire controlled all of Spain, Portugal, the coasts of northern Africa, Egypt, and modern-day Israel and Jordan and parts of Iraq and Georgia and Armenia and stuff, all the way through Turkey and Lebanon. It controlled all of southern Europe. And it went up through France, all the way to the Scottish border. It controlled Belgium, Netherlands, Switzerland, parts of Germany. It spanned 3 continents and around roughly 40 modern-day countries.
40 modern-day countries?
Yeah, I mean, they say 40 to 50, but when I did the maths myself, I was like, I can't see how this is 50. It seems around 40, 45.
At this point in time, are these European centers more populous than their Indian and Chinese counterparts? There's obviously a Muslim golden period where the Arabic world is really populous, really innovative, really advanced. And I know there is a period as well where the Indian subcontinent is super advanced too, and the Chinese continent later down the 10, 1100s, 1200s, when they first developed gunpowder, are super advanced as well. It is basically the entire technological heart of the world in this Roman Empire right now. Well,
look, I don't want to say the golden age of Europe is this moment, because you could also say the Renaissance or maybe the Industrial Revolution as well. But this is easily one of Europe's golden periods. I mean, right now you're literally facing a empire that is unlike anything the world had seen before. It might not be the biggest in terms of people's conquered or total lands taken.
So just a bit of quick Googling, but in 30 BC, the Roman Empire has total population of around 50 to 60 million people. But at the same time, the Han Dynasty in China is likely the most populous, with also around 50 to 60 million people. So China is still dominating the population game.
But China isn't just
end of the Roman
world,
Empire.
really.
I was looking at some forums about why places have this intense population centers. Why places like India and China have these massive populations, and it is just the state of the geography. It's all geography, and that's kind of obvious when you think about it.
What's it? The Yangtze? Which one's the Chinese?
Yangtze River.
Yangtze River.
There's loads of different other rivers in China. There's loads of fucking water.
The Nile. I mean,
coming.
if you were to search throughout history the population of Egypt, but you were to put it on a map in terms of where the population actually was in Egypt throughout its entire history. And remember, Egypt's one of the most ancient civilizations ever. For all of those thousands and thousands and thousands of years, they're 95%, maybe even more, of its entire population all that time is just one line down the Nile River, and the rest of it is just not touched at all. Rivers play such a crucial part in society.
It's anywhere with a lack of an abundance of fields and strong water sources is typically synonymous with really high population counts. I guess that's why China, which is a lot of the eastern part of China, is plains. It's basically all really plowable fields, very, very fertile because the rivers run through them. The Ganges going right down India. And then obviously they're connected to other continents. So people migrate there in search of these better lives, I guess, thousands of years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the conversation, but shall we actually talk about the Roman Empire? Right, okay, so let's get started. So if you weren't aware about how the Roman Empire works, this is the year 27 BC onwards, and it goes on for roughly, and this obviously you can debate this, and we will debate this later on, but roughly the Roman Empire as we know it lasts for about 500 years from now. So I cannot talk about every emperor they had during those 500 years. Some of them are interesting, some of them aren't particularly interesting, some are fascinating, we'll maybe mention them a little bit, but realistically, there's so much to discuss in this next 500-year periods, and we need to, of course, talk about the collapse as well, how it all fell apart, because I learned that actually there's no real consensus. Well, the Visigoths are a part of it, but there's no real consensus about what it is specifically that stops the empire being an empire. So we're going to talk about all of that. But let's start instead of what Rome itself is like. What is the Roman Empire like now that it's an empire? How did it work? So to explain all the things that the Romans did for the world would take another 3 episodes on top of what I've done. So instead, I'll just quote John Cleese in possibly my favourite sketch of all time,
On
which
Monty
is
Python and
from Monty Python, Life of Brian, which is, all right, but apart from the sanitation, the medicine, the education, the wine, the public order, irrigation, roads, the freshwater system, and public health, what have the Romans ever done for us?
Can we act it out partially? Because it is one of my favourite skits to do.
I love it. It's so good.
But what have the Romans ever done for us?
The aqueduct.
Yeah, well, they've done the aqueduct. But besides the aqueduct, what have the Romans ever done for us?
Well, what about medicine? I mean, medicine was pretty good as well. Huh?
Medicine's pretty good, yeah. Just keep us alive a bit longer. But besides medicine, besides the aqueduct, what have the Romans ever done for us?
Well, I mean, the education, we all should be blithering idiots, but now we understand what we're actually doing.
Besides education, besides the aqueducts, and besides public health, besides...
Oh, you can't forget the wine.
Oh, the wine!
The best bit in that is when he goes, when he goes, someone goes, the roads, and he goes, well, of course the roads. The roads go without saying. That's my favourite part. I love that so much. Speaking of, actually, that's what we'll talk about next. We have to talk about the roads, because the road system is actually really interesting.
Roads lead to Rome.
Exactly, and that's not a myth. It was genuinely true. That was exactly how it worked. The Romans essentially connected all of their empire. They created 400,000 kilometres of highways and great roads. They needed it to keep the empire together. And as well as this, and this is really interesting, not just the roads, they included signs every mile, meaning, which let me just say, by the way, that
Londinium, 10 kilometers
before, well, kind of, yeah. I mean, but basically, if you were to use a dirt road, a path before this, maybe if there's 2 villages that have a trade that happens a lot, they'd build some sort of dirt path. But in general, there just weren't any roads. You just followed the kind of way that you would through a forest or through a clearing or whatever. That's just how you do it. Now you've literally not only got roads everywhere, but you've also got signs showing exactly where you are. And this is crucial because basically, this means that for the very first time, Europeans could actually place themselves in the world. If you're a peasant, you just thought of your life as where you are. Where you are in the world. Now you're like, oh wait, I actually know I'm 500 miles or I'm a few days walk from Rome, because you have the mileage to be able to see it. It completely transformed the way human society operates. This is the very beginning of European globalization. Trade and commerce expanded rapidly during these years. It was unprecedented. The empire may have become bigger physically, but the roads made the barriers between communities smaller, which meant that the connectivity was way tighter. This is another thing that the Romans did. They spent huge swaths of money creating new cities with new infrastructure, such as the famous aqueducts, making them become major centres for culture and trade and power. So we're going to now play a game, Zach. We haven't played many games so far this pod, so now it's time to play.
It's been very, very dull. It's been very
dull in the games.
So do you reckon that's just firstly? Do you reckon that's because the Romans conquered these cities and were like, fucking hell, this stinks of shit. They're living in absolute squalor. And we're in fucking togas.
Some of these that I'm about to mention are built on settlements that were already there from previous settlers. Some are completely brand new. I don't think it was about the stench. I think it was about they saw an opportunity. They were like, we're this far from this place and we're this far from Rome. If we build a place here on this hill, then we can not only create a defensive position for us, but we can also take advantage of the natural resources and we can build a pathway. It's all those things combined. That's why they were ahead of everyone else. It's a really interesting facet to think
far smarter than anyone else before.
Well, also, to be fair, fair, and maybe I'm giving them too much credit. I'm sure a bunch of them were just settlers that wanted to just build anywhere, and they chose a spot. But yes, in general, I do think that they had a much more strategic mind for this stuff than previous. Because why would you? You don't need any strategy about where you're going to trade with people. Now you've got an empire. You're like, okay, well, actually, maybe we should go here because this would work really well. So anyway, we're going to play a game, Zach. I'm going to name a town that was originally built by the Romans, but I'm going to use its Latin name. You have to guess which town it actually is.
Oh, fuck. I'm so cooked.
I'm so cooked. Okay, here we go. Right. So the first one, Londinium.
London.
Yeah, where you are right now.
Yeah.
It was founded in 47 AD by the Romans. They built on the Thames River. Another one, Constantinople.
That's modern-day Istanbul.
Well done. That was founded by the Roman Emperor Constantine in 330 AD.
Quite late that.
Lutetia.
Lutetia. Is this one quite obvious?
It's a famous one.
Can you give me a clue about what country it's in?
No, but I'll say it's one of the more famous cities.
Paris.
Well done. Paris.
Come on.
Paris, built by the Romans after they conquered a Celtic tribe settlement on the River Seine. Now, this is a big one. Are you ready? Colonia Claudia Ara Agrippensium.
I fucking...
By big one, I mean the name, not the settlement itself.
No, I play a load of Total War Rome, and I think I know this one. Can you give me a clue? But I think I can get it.
It's on the northern half of the Roman Empire.
Okay, say again.
Colonia Claudia Ara Agrippensium.
I think it's either Budapest or Prague.
I wouldn't say that's really the northern... I suppose Prague is. Yeah, you're wrong, though. It's Cologne.
Cologne.
It's
Colonia.
Yeah.
Cologne.
Colonia.
Fuck.
Colony. Built by Roman settlers in 50 AD, so pretty similar to London time. The next one, Vindobona.
Vindobona. A clue, please?
I don't know if this was enough of a clue, but I'll say it's built on one of the most important rivers in Europe.
Oh, Kiev?
No, it's not Kiev. They never went as far as Kiev.
Built one of the most important rivers in Europe. I'm going to go for Budapest.
A good guess, but it's wrong. This city was specifically built to protect Rome's borders on the Danube River. It was Vienna.
Vienna.
And next one, Mediolanum.
Mediolanum is fucking... I know this one. This is shit. This is a classic settlement in Rome Total War. It's in France, isn't it?
This one's closer to home.
It's Marseille, I think.
Incorrect. It is Milan. You're close in terms of the region. It's Milan. So, similar to Paris, this was when a Celtic settlement was conquered by the Romans and they built the city of Milan on top of it. Final one, Zach. Barcino. Or Barcino. I don't know how you say it.
Barcino. How'd you spell it?
Barcino.
Barcelona.
Well done, Barcelona.
Come on.
Yes. Okay, so you got Barcelona, you got Paris. You got 4. You actually got 4. I mean, Londinium's fucking obvious, as is Constantinople, but you got 4 out of, what is that, 7?
4 out of 7?
4 out of 7. So I'll just quickly...
That's not that bad, is it?
It's pretty good. I'll quickly name these settlements, and I'm sure people maybe at home were playing their own game and trying to guess as well. There were 7 in total. I'll name the cities: London, Istanbul, Paris, Cologne, Vienna, Milan, and Barcelona. And there are more, but these are the ones that I felt were worthy of having a guessing game of. Those are 7 of the most important or most famous European cities that I've just named, and they were all built by the Romans, or at least became a city due to the Romans. So that shows just the influence that they've had on society that we live in today. Back to Barcino, that final one, it was built actually by the very first emperor, Augustus, the one we talked about in the last one, Octavian, in 15 BC, so 12 years after he became the emperor. During the Pax Romana, many famous events happened throughout Roman history, and Augustus was there for some of them. For example, during Augustus's reign, Rome ordered for our Lord and Saviour, Jesus Christ, to be executed by crucifixion. Arguably, one of the biggest moments in human history, considering what came of it.
Not the Jews, the Romans. Not the Jews.
No, that's what I said, the Romans. It was the Romans that did it. Obviously, there's a lot of not knowing.
The Romans are the main fucking culprit of thousands of years of Jewish persecution.
Yeah, but you could also say they're legends because they created the most epic martyr ever. No, their decision to fuck him off has actually created the most ridiculously
that's a great
strong
philosophical question.
Catholic Church.
Is the Romans deciding to kill Jesus and make him a martyr and therefore Son of God spawning Christianity worthy of millions and millions of Jews dying?
That's a question not for me to answer.
Don't fucking answer that. Don't fucking answer
No, obviously
that
not.
one.
I find Christianity as a whole a bit dodge. So, like, you know, it'd be great for me to say, you know, good on Jesus for this story, but like, went a bit over the top for me. Ever since the Romans killed him. This is probably the most famous moment associated with the Roman Empire, even though we don't think of it as part of the Roman Empire because it's kind of separated. But really, this was under Roman rule. So I will quickly explain, like, Jesus, and this is important to know. Obviously, there's no way of knowing if Jesus' story, his full story, was real, but it is confirmed that Jesus was a Jewish preacher in Jerusalem who had garnered a huge following with people that considered him king-like and like a messiah. So that is all true. And what happened was the Roman governor at the time, this is obviously a few years AD now because Jesus has been born, the Roman governor saw him as a dangerous heretic, so they crucified him. The Romans used crucifixion as a brutal punishment saved only for certain groups, slaves, rebels, and people that are seen as threats to authority. So crucifixion was part of the Roman penal method. And Jesus was by far the most famous person to be killed through this method. And obviously after that, this grew into, you know, the biggest religion as we know. So it's a pretty big story.
What was the emperor at the time? That it was...
Well, so I'll tell you, so I know what you're thinking of. So it wasn't actually the emperor who made the decision, even though this is a big decision to kill a prophet like this or someone that's, you know, a big figure. So he was crucified by Pontius Pilate, which I believe was the like regional authoritator for Rome that was in Jerusalem or Judea.
The governor.
So, you know, he was the governor. So it was his decision, not the emperor himself, that made it happen. It was actually, what was it, 80-30? I'm having a look quickly now, 80-30 or 33. So it actually wasn't Augustus. I actually got that wrong. It wasn't Augustus who was the very first. It would have been the one after him that was the emperor at the time. But it doesn't really matter because the emperor wasn't the one that made the choice. And if the emperor had known what would come from it, then he would have made sure it was him that was making the decision rather than the Pontius Pilate, as it was. So one of the most famous moments in human history, and that happened during the Romans. The Romans would continue conquering throughout Europe, and they reached Britain in 43 AD, as we know. Britain is an interesting part. As I learned more about this, I realised how just an anomaly Britain was, because if you think about it,
we're an enormous part of Roman history because, like, I think we're the first place to, like. There's a lot of places resisted Roman rule, but like in terms of like the way in which we did it, like spawned a cultural legend in what was Queen Boudicca. And then Queen Boudicca led armies of literally hundreds of thousands trying to root the Romans out of Britannia. And ultimately they had like a really, really horrible death. It's like the first tale of like how horrible Roman rule sparked uprising.
You're stretching too far. But you're right. I think the point you're making is Britain is an anomaly in how it works with the rest of the empire. And part of what you said is true. You had these huge revolts. It was easily one of the most difficult places for the Romans to keep hold of, which is why a lot of generals that would later become emperors spent years in Britannia trying to deal with the Celtic Scots and the Gaelics that were trying to constantly raiding and stuff. Like I said, it was 43 AD that they came in. And this is an important point to make. It's so different from everywhere else the Romans have taken over. Remember what I said, the Mare Nostrum, meaning our sea. The Roman Empire is fundamentally based on the Mediterranean. All of the Roman Empire is focused on the Mediterranean. Now, it may go up to Gaul, but even if you're in Gaul, you're still, as in, by Gaul, I mean France, you're still going to come down to the coast of France and you're going to sail a boat, and that's how you come around the... Britannia was an island. Apparently the Romans talked about it in this mystical way.
Yeah,
like Britannia
it was extremely wealthy.
It was... Well, no, hold on.
Really arable farmland, like strong reserves of natural resources.
Yeah, so settlers would come from Rome all the time, yes, but... Make no mistake, it was weird weather, something that the Mediterranean did not understand, and the people were very strange. They were like these tall, ginger, like weird, aggressive guys that you didn't understand at all. And it was kind of different. So, like, you kind of got this mystique to Britain that you didn't get with the rest of the Roman Empire. With all the other places, you kind of got this, like, I don't know, the Israelites or the people in Tunisia or the people in Gaul are different, but they all come down to the Mediterranean. Britannia was literally something out of this world, and to them, it was kind of like a frontier. It would be like, Columbus going to America. It was that's how it felt to the Romans.
Really?
Yeah, well, it is, but all of the world that they've got so far, you technically could travel around. This is an island, and an island that's nowhere near the Mediterranean. Like, remember, the Mediterranean is the key. If it's something that's outside the key, it's special. So yeah, so it was invaded in 43 AD, and I can't remember the emperor that tried the first time, but there were several emperors that really tried to keep hold of Britannia. Eventually, I said we as if I'm Roman. They would lose it. But before that, again, one of them.
You got an Italian part of it. You're still Brit, mate.
I know. I consider myself Roman Britain personally. But after all, I'm from Londinium.
Brexit, Joe, and you never be anything but British these days.
But no, obviously one of the most famous moments from this time period was Hadrian's Wall, when the Emperor Hadrian, considered one of the best Roman emperors of the time, he famously built a wall at the top of his kingdom, and that is literally his wall is the northern end to the empire. He put it there and kept the Celtic Scots out of good, strong Roman lands below it, which of course kept all the arable farmland to the Romans and kept the Scots in the highlands.
It's such a smart idea, isn't it? Keeping the Scots out of the rest of the empire.
Yeah, we've tried. We've tried quite a few times.
We tried many times. They even tried themselves to get out of the empire, but
and then we took them in, and now they're trying.
That's right. They're trying their best to get out. We know better than to let them go on their own again.
I mean, this is wall that's lasted like almost 2,000 years, so I'd love to see it. The next thing that we're going to discuss, of course, is the Colosseum, because that is another World Heritage Site. In fact, it's one of the 7 wonders of the world, and it was built by the Romans. It was literally the symbol of their Roman power and grandness. It was built in 80 AD, and it was their way of not only showing how far they've come, but also of subjugating the masses. Rome was always a place of, trying, even if it wasn't for the people, especially now that it has a dictator / emperor, it would always try to pretend it was for the people. And to have a Colosseum where you'd have these peasants, these plebs that could come in and watch these dramatic fights and stuff was a way of trying to keep everyone in line. So you've got, the Romans were clever. They always tried new things to try and keep their people not wanting to revolt, even though revolts still happen like all the time. 1 year before that, in 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted near Naples. So 1 year before the Colosseum was built, Vesuvius erupted. It buried this.
Named after Pompey?
Ooh, that's a great question. We've got to find that out. I wouldn't be surprised if you're right.
Tippy taffy.
It seems like it was built many years ago. It was likely named by its Oscan founders using the word Pompeii, meaning 5, suggesting that the town was formed from 5 settlements that grew together.
Interesting.
So it's a good
what's 5
suggestion
in Italian?
That it could be Cinque, which is nothing like Pompeii.
No.
But Oscan is not Latin. Is that Greek? Maybe I'm not sure. Is where that is?
Maybe it's Carthaginian.
It's just exactly. It could be some sort of ancient language. Anyway, this eruption over Pompeii covered the town in ash and debris, preserving the buildings, streets, and the people under volcanic material. Again, I'm actually not certain on this, but I would bet good money this is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's another place I would absolutely love to visit that I haven't. This is something that happened thousands of years ago, and yet you're able to get a much better look than anything else that other people are able to see from thousands of years ago, because this is something that's preserved so nicely.
Can I know
it's really
another point?
Creepy when you think about it.
You learn about Pompeii, right? When you were at school. Yeah, and I learned about Pompeii when I was at school. Why do we spend so much time in history when we're in like secondary school learning about Pompeii and not like the wider ramifications of the Roman Empire? Like, we learn a bit about Boudicca and how the Roman Empire comes to Britain.
Can you not answer that question?
No, it's so
what
mad,
age were you when you learned?
No, I think I was about 13, but like...
No, younger.
It is mad that we learn so much about every student in Britain knows at the back of their hand what happened in Pompeii. But if you ask any student what happens in, I don't know, in the Eastern Front, in Stalingrad, we've had this conversation before.
You're not learning. Sorry,
history curriculum of British schools feels so wrong. It misplaced. I'm not wrong. Wrong. We learn far more about Pompeii than we do like. I don't know, Alexander the Great.
It's visceral. The reason you remember it is that it's visceral. Yeah, no, but the point is you remember it.
We did not learn about those things. Learn loads.
You're 13.
Yeah, but I remember semesters upon not semesters, but like terms of us learning about Pompeii. Literally like days and weeks of like looking at like the plates, and you remember this too, obviously. Like you're looking at the plates and the glasses, and you're watching films about Pompeii, like recreations of it. But like that is such insignificant history compared
You're
to like,
really- I think you're
everything
missing a
else that's
point.
going along around the world. Like
Okay,
you're not learning
okay,
about
yeah, I
like
got your point.
infrastructure and development and cities and all that. And what's happening? We never learned about the Visigoths shattering Rome into like two
But you're
pieces.
not. No, but it all. Look, you need. I think you're really missing a point here. All of human history is. It's very similar. A lot of it is very, very similar stuff. If you were to teach about conflict, war, battle, people over and over, then it becomes boring very quickly. What you want is bite-sized chunks of things that are very, very distinctive, but very interesting at the same time. Pompey works because it's European. That is not the only thing we learned about the Roman Empire. We learned about much more about the Roman Empire at school, but that's easily one of the most memorable things because it's so unlike anything.
Yeah,
the reason Pompeii is so well hold on. The reason Pompeii is so well known is because there's no story like it. As a child, you go, man, this is kind of fucked up. This is like, these are people like me from thousands of years ago that just had volcano fire. And everyone thinks like as a kid, like, oh, volcanoes are cool, man. You think like, you play like the floor is lava. You're like, I'm going to stand on a chair because the floor is lava. And you're like, shit, these people were playing real life. Floor is lava. Like that's the kind of level. They're literally trying to adapt to how a child thinks. If you were to show them the Visigoths followed by Stalingrad, followed by Leningrad, they're going to become jaded and they're going to get PTSD.
Yeah,
so the
true,
idea that you can fucking do that, like you have to have differences. That's why we learn. Sorry. Hold on. That's why you learn about the Black Death. And the Black Death on its own is actually quite boring because the Black Death is about a plague. It's about a pandemic. But the fact is, when you go into the really juicy details, like the rats and the fleas and the symptoms, then it becomes kind of grim and a bit disgusting, and it's memorable. We don't learn about any other plagues. Don't learn about the Spanish flu. They don't go, right, now that we've done the Black Death, let's now go to the Spanish flu. Now that's really bad. You get a bunch of soldiers that all died after World War I because they all got this horrible disease. We don't talk about that. It's but the fact that you need these bite-sized chunks that you can then learn piece by piece. I mean, we call pint-sized history for fuck's sake. It's in the name. Learning about literally bite-sized different pieces of information that are interesting.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I think there's far more important things for like kids to learn than particularly Pompeii. Like I think
there are. Of course there are. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't learn it at all.
We learn so much about like English and kings and like the English Civil War, which is like really relevant for us. We don't learn anything about imperialism. We learn nothing about like what the British Empire did in India, which is something I think should just be on the curriculum by default. And because not only is it fascinating, but it's also relevant to us.
Yeah,
it feels like it should be covered. We learn far more about the Spanish Inquisition and the Spanish Armada than we do the English.
Yeah, because every government pushes their citizens to learn the victories.
But like the world is so diverse, and like by teaching kids about like Pompeii and then like Boudica, you narrow the mindset from like this like intense globalized world to this like a volcano erupted, which is I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying that there are far bigger things that are far more interesting and relevant than just this.
But mate, we're agreeing. I'm just
Pompeii.
saying we both agree it's not important. I'm just pointing out that if you're dealing with children, you need to deal with them in a certain way. And to say like
13, 14.
You just said 13.
Yeah, 13, 14. We're learning like it's not like you're not going to teach us about like the Holocaust. That is like that's too.
We do learn a little bit about the Holocaust. So that's at 18.
Yeah, when I learned about the Holocaust, I'm Jewish, so I learned about it far younger than you did.
That's true.
I was learning about the Holocaust in like primary school, and obviously I've got family that would tell me about it and stuff like that. But like when I was at school and I went to Jewish school, so like the curriculum's kind of swayed towards Judaic thinking. But like at the same time, there was far more things that go on in the world that I think are so much more important for kids to learn. But I appreciate that you have to put it in like a child's mind.
Let me just say, one point you made there, I completely agree with. I despise the fact that almost every country wants to show its victories rather than its defeats. If it were up to me, I would absolutely show to British children, maybe not when they're super young, but I would show to them how Britain subjugated and abused people in Ireland and India, especially those two places, but many others, but those two places specifically. Along with everything else, show the victories and the defeats. We're very proud of World War II, show them that, and we're very not proud of how we acted towards the Irish and the Indians and put them together and show
like a moral perspective.
I think we should do that. I'm just pointing out that when you're talking with younger kids, this type of story is perfect, as is stories like the Titanic, which, let's face it, is not a particularly important piece of history, but we still learn about it. I learned about Rasputin, and let's face it, Rasputin himself is not a particularly important part of world history.
I'm not saying we need to learn things that are like morally dubious. We have to like question our background. Whilst you have to bear in mind that they are kids and you have to like wean them in slowly to hardcore history. Like there is this need to like stay away from the really easy to understand volcanoes. Oh, well, a volcano erupted 2,000 years ago, to something a bit more like important and maybe relevant that at least inspires critical thinking. But that's my point anyway. We need to get back to Rome. It's an interesting conversation because like, I'm sure this happens when they're drawing up the curriculum. I'm sure the people that have these conversations. They talk about it.
This is maybe for another podcast another time, but I do think that the English school curriculum needs a lot of work, and I'm sure you agree with me. And there are many, many things that it gets completely wrong. And for me, in general, I actually think history is one of the better ones of all the subjects and how they deal with them. Having said that, there are still some things that I wish they did differently, and we've already discussed that. But yeah, let's get right back into the Roman Empire itself. I've just mentioned some of the big events that's happened in the Roman Empire, but it also can't be overstated just how influential the Romans were to everything. Roman law would become the original legal systems of many European nations. So the ideas like legal codes and contracts and property rights were all things that originated from the Romans. Now, it all branched off from there. Obviously, from then on, it all took a life of its own, but the Roman Empire was crucial for these things. And of course, there's other things, not just law, language. So obviously the city of Rome spoke Latin. And so the Roman Empire spread Latin to all the corners, which means that we can thank them for Italian, we can thank them for Spanish, French, Portuguese, Romanian, Catalan. Well, actually, I was literally about to say, we can even thank it for English, because even though English is a Germanic language, it is packed full of Latin origin words, partly due to our relationship with France, but also just certain words that we've taken from them anyway. I mean, we've taken some Greek words as well, so in many of these older languages, English is kind of inspired from. But Latin, there's loads of Latin in English. There's like way more than I think you realise. Here's another thing. Another fascinating part about Roman culture was olive oil. So olive oil had been around for around 3,000 years before the Romans. But Roman life itself practically revolved around olive oil. So they used it for cooking, obviously, but they also used it to burn oil for lamps, for lighting. They also used olive oil to clean their body. For example, those iconic Roman baths that we all know about. They also used it for medicine and also for religious rituals. So like olive oil was like a key part of almost every facet of Roman life. They ramped up production so much that it became one of their biggest exports, and it became a staple of Roman culture. And obviously in today, Italy, olive oil is a huge part of Italian culture. So it's like it's never really left since then.
A great export as well. Filippo Berio, if you're listening to this, I would love a Filippo Berio sponsorship. I use you extensively in all my pastas.
Ooh. Can we give a historic Roman angle to getting a fucking olive oil sponsor? We're sponsored by Roman olive oil. We're like the Roman Empire.
By Filippo Berio. It is a fucking great olive oil. It's so tasty. It's a good one. Yeah. You can use it as salad dressing. You can drizzle it on things. It's so tasty.
Of course, not every commodity traded in the Roman Empire was classy or tasteful or luxurious as olive oil or wine. I mentioned in part 1 how the earliest raids from the city of Rome would take people and bring them back as slaves, and that custom never left. Slaves were a huge part of Rome's wealth, literally a huge part of the culture. Human beings were bought, sold, and forced to work in nearly every corner of Roman life. They depended on the slave trade. Apparently, the emperor alone would likely own thousands of slaves in his personal villas, palaces, and offices. So one man would own thousands.
With the metal noose around the neck.
We're going to now talk about the latter stages of the Roman Empire, because the Pax Romana has been thriving. We're seeing all these things like the olive oil and the slave industry and all the big events that are happening around Rome. But the golden age of Rome cannot last forever. And in those first few hundred years of the empire, if you were Roman, you would probably imagine that Rome would be eternal, because it was so unlike anything that had happened. And it had been going on for so long at that point, and it was only continuously growing. I mean, occasionally there would be setbacks, but in general, it was only continuously growing. The reality was that all the strength that Rome had hid its weaknesses. So for the people that were living in Rome during the Pax Romana, they honestly would have thought that Rome was this eternal thing that would last forever, that would never go. We spoke before about the limits. It went from close to the border of Scotland to, northern Africa and Israel and Jordan and Iraq and all these places. But the problem is that the internal struggles kept reappearing. So Rome never had a clean, fixed rule of succession, ever. So basically, every time an emperor died, there would be a bunch of the top generals and politicians in Rome that would then vie to become the next. Obviously, especially during the Pax Romana, but at different points as well, they were able to have a good succession where like a clear front runner, usually an heir, would come forward, like a son or whoever, adoptive son, and they would take over, and it would the power struggle would be dealt with early. But like the iconic fratricide of Romulus and Remus was like a constant theme for Rome throughout all the years that it was
quite
together.
telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you're founded on this like foundation of murder or civil war or civil strife, and like the only thing that pervades, despite this like intense like technological advances and innovation you're bringing, and like rule and law to the world, it's sort of like at the very foundation of it, this continuous civil strife from like 700 BC to 300, 400 AD. I don't know exactly what day it is, but it is a thousand years have passed. You still have this intense like politicking that exists.
There's no way around it. It's kind of part of the fabric. So if you've already got that, then all you need is the other stuff to start packing on top. And this is where the Pax Romana ends. Basically, in 180 AD or wherever it is roughly that it ends, it's because at that time there's a crisis. You have barbarian invasions, civil wars, famines, plagues, breakaway states that eventually all come together. I think the entire thing is finally fixed by the Emperor Diocletian. But by that point, because you've already seen that the cracks are there, it's like, it's going to happen eventually. And I think at that point, people stop believing that the Roman Empire is eternal and more. It's kind of similar to many democracies that we see now that you go, man, if maybe actually democracy isn't as certain as we thought it could be, because now we're actually realizing if the cracks are there, then maybe the next one will kill it out. If NATO's tested now, then maybe it can't. At one point, NATO looked like this impenetrable force that the Americans and
Europeans it's not looking so impenetrable now, is it? Putin's rubbing his hands saying, oh.
Putin's like begging for this for decades, but yeah, it's exactly that type of thing. If there's something you think is going to just constant for your lifetime, it's just suddenly becomes not that. But this is an important, very important moment in Roman history. Diocletian, the same guy that fixed all those problems, he has this genius plan. And that is that the empire is too big for one man to rule. I mean, you have to think about it, like the Roman Empire at this point is spread so far. Like even with its roads and all its connectivity, it's so difficult for legions, generals, the state, the Senate to be able to communicate so quickly. So he thinks if the empire is too big for one man rule, let's have two. Again, this is not the same thing as two different kingdoms, but he decides to administer an eastern side. There would still be one emperor, but the eastern side and the western side would have one person. The emperor would control one, and he'd choose someone to work for the other. And together, they would keep it together. There's a problem with this, though, is that the eastern side of the Roman Empire is far richer than the western side.
Well, Constantinople must be the richest city in the world at this point in time.
Constantinople at this point has not been built.
Really?
So it's not to do with Constantinople, but instead to do with the fact that it's all over Greece and all over Turkey, parts of the very legendary beginnings of the classical world. A lot of money there, and more importantly, less room for barbarians, less room for open warfare. And basically, the East was more urban, economically stronger, while the West was poorer and more exposed to constant invasions. And it was also really hard to defend the West. So Diocletian gave Maximian the West. But importantly, let me just say it one more time. It's still one empire. It's not two, but they tried to keep it as one empire. And then this is what happens next. A few decades after Diocletian's death, Constantine I becomes the emperor. He wins a civil war. He's actually known as Constantine the Great. He wins a civil war to become the sole ruler of Rome. So he ignores the one on each side, but, he knows that, I guess my point is that the idea of having two sides is already there, but he focuses on having one ruler above all. But he makes two of the most important decisions ever in Rome's history. The first one is, he is the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity. So by this point, which is around 300 AD, Christianity has grown really quickly. But in the empire itself, Christian practice, at times, not always, but at times was still a crime. and the persecution of Christians was brutal. There was some real
Christian
awful
pogroms.
scenarios of, Christian pogroms, Constantine helped decriminalize and normalize it. And this is a huge moment for Christianity in Europe and, of course, the world. So this is the really important moment, because by normalizing it, from then on, it just grows so quickly. On top of this, the second thing he did was he founded the city of Constantinople, named after himself, Constantinople. He made it in modern-day Turkey, and then he named it the capital of the Roman Empire. So the Roman Empire is no longer in Rome. The capital is Constantinople.
Constantinopolitan Empire.
Is the Constantinopolitan Empire. The city of Rome still has this like symbolic, legendary, historic status, but its influence and its importance is decreasing over time. And then the Huns arrive. The Huns were a nomadic people that burst into Europe from the east of Europe. So like not the Roman Empire, but just like Eastern Europe as a whole.
The Huns and Attila the Hun.
Attila the Hun is one of the most famous Huns. But yeah, there are people. It's not this moment that Attila the Hun arrives, but he comes in and is obviously a big detriment. The Gothic people in the region were terrified and they were scattered. So large numbers of Goths asked to cross the Danube into the Roman Empire for refuge. Emperor Valens, who was controlling the eastern half in this moment in time, allows them in. The migrant crisis that follows is handled really poorly and really corruptly.
It's the first ever stop the boats.
Literally, stop the Danube boats.
Stop the river crossings.
Stop those Goths.
Stop
I don't
the
like
Goths.
them. But like this one actually kind of has some merit because the Goths are really not good to the Empire. The Goths
no,
are
but
right.
I don't you say that, but the people in Calais, Great Britain, I can't say they're refugees, but.
No,
I don't know.
Pint-sized humanitarian crisis.
We're back into pint-sized politics. I'm sorry, everyone. I apologise.
But no, soon enough, because of how poorly it was handled, the Goths rebelled against their new overlords in the Romans. At the Battle of Adrianople, Valens, the emperor of Rome at the time, and 2/3 of the Eastern Roman army are killed, which is by far one of the biggest defeats that Rome held. I mean, obviously, the Cannae, which we spoke about in the first one, is like the legendary one, but there are quite a few Roman defeats. Because they lost this huge battle at Adrianople, at settlement, the Goths were given rights and lands within Rome that had never been allowed before for a people living within their borders. Now, when dealing with new groups, Rome was like conceding rather than conquering. When new people wanted to join the Romans or whatever, the Romans had the say. And for the first time, they don't have the say. In fact, they're having to settle. Very similar to the Carthaginians, really.
Yeah.
And then this is the big moment. Emperor Theodosius dies, and his sons, Honorius and Arcadius, split the empire into two empires. 395 AD is when we now have a Western Roman Empire and an Eastern Roman Empire. Now, the Goths, who have only recently joined into this land, living within this empire, they become known as the Visigoths, which literally means Western Goths, and it's literally the Roman Goths. The Visigoths are the ones that were within Rome. And their new king, Alaric, became frustrated with the treatment and the empire's decision-making, and he declared war from inside the kingdom. Since the West was far poorer and easier to defeat, even though they're from the East, they're like, we're not going to Constantinople, fuck that, we're going to Rome. Rome is where we're going to win. If we go to Constantinople, they'll fuck us up.
Yeah.
So instead, they go down to Rome, they sack Italy, they sack Austria, the parts of Rome, and eventually they sack the city of Rome for the first time in 800 years. The Visigoths sack Rome. And you have to remember, Rome is this legendary, the biggest power in the region. For it to be sacked after 800 years is a huge status shock. Like, it's like, oh my God, this is this city that was once
this
invulnerable
happens to other cities. This doesn't happen in Rome.
Exactly. And so, it was a sign that the Western Roman Empire was about to collapse. Barbarian raids in the Western Empire would rapidly increase because they knew the success was possible. They would take chunks of the empire away one by one. So Germania, France, Britannia, most of Spain, Northern Africa all fell one by one because the Roman Empire couldn't keep it together. Basically, by the end, only Italy remained of the places that Rome controlled. And then the last Western Roman emperor, ironically, was called Romulus. He was a barbarian. I know, it's so poetic. All of this story is so
poetic. It's really poetic, isn't it? Yeah.
A barbarian soldier called Odoacer, who was a general in the Roman Empire, overthrew the 16-year-old emperor.
That's poetic in itself. but a Roman
and
general takes
again,
over
a general,
power.
his brother, yeah, exactly, and declared a new kingdom. Odoacer would become the ruler of the kingdom of Italy. I mean, it was actually called the kingdom of Odoacer, but because it was Italy, we now call it the kingdom of Italy. Romulus Augustus was allowed to live out his days, knowing he was the last of a series of Roman rulers stretching back 1,229 years. The year is 476 AD, and the Roman Empire, as we know it, is finally over.
I guess you can't help but feel slightly xenophobic, I guess. Like, it's a weird
These
thing
barbarians.
to say. It's a weird thing to come to, but like, you think about this, like, this empire that's obviously been the greatest empire and delivered such like unbelievable innovations in like technology, medicine, infrastructure, and I'm gonna fuck myself politically by saying, right, letting in these hordes of Goths, they're suddenly down to their knees, and the great Roman Empire is. You're going to cancel me, aren't you?
You're okay. Just immediately cancelling.
No, because they're
I mean, it's not, the Goths aren't the reason.
Exactly,
the cracks were beginning to show.
There's far more reasons. The Roman Empire had been papering over cracks for literally hundreds of years, like 500, 600 years. The Goths aren't the be all and end all, but it is just slightly like kind of funny when you look at it from a modern lens. You look at this like intense xenophobia that's happening across Europe. That one of the main causes is just, you can only laugh. If you don't laugh, you'll be like, oh shit, this
I do think if the Roman
existentialism.
If all the Roman emperors that are up in the Roman gods and looking down, including the Christian ones like Constantine, who are looking down and seeing all the mistakes that they all made, including the most recent, I bet they're all going like, fuck, I wish we hadn't let those barbarians in. Those fucking northern scum.
You can't say
Empire was so pure.
We can't be saying.
I know. I guess I'm not. No. I'm not agreeing with you. I guess I'm just pointing out. I bet that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. I reckon they all think like, for this empire to be pure, it had to be pure.
It just feels a bit too on the nose for like modern politics.
But also, you have to remember as well that like when people come into a country, both nations suddenly have to deal with it in their own way. So like the Romans didn't push the Goths into their kingdom, and the Goths didn't want to join the Romans. The reason was
the Huns that pushed them away.
Nomadic people from the east, similar to the Mongols, similar to Attila the Hun is Attila the Hun is, basically an earlier version of Genghis Khan. Like they're all people that are pushing through and killing everyone. Yeah. And so you have to like go, oh shit, I don't want to be part of this. I'm going to come to the kingdom that I know can protect me. So they all come into Rome, and suddenly the Roman Empire has to think, what do we do? Do we let them in or do we not? And that's a tough choice. You never know what you're going to get.
Beyond that, you get these new people who are like unaccustomed to Rome. They can't deal with the corruption. I'm sure there's like heavy corruption. It's not the same levels of maybe rights that peasants have or the Goths would have in this day and age in Rome. So it's very different for the Goths as it was for the Romans of old, who might have experienced a lot more freedoms and liberties than they would have done. And you can't help but be unhappy. The real history there is they're probably treated incredibly poorly, the Visigoths. And they see no other choice but to rebel and but to uprise.
This is a really good point, actually, and I wasn't going to talk about this, but it is worth noting, because I think a lot of people know this already, but the word barbarian and the word vandal, which comes from the Vandals, which were another people that tried to get into Rome at the time, they were named specifically as evil or against the grain criminals.
So there's this, like,
because it suited the Roman... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's literally the earliest forms of language xenophobia. It was the Romans trying to push that they are not worthy of being in this kingdom.
Yeah, I guess so more than being like the earliest sign of like a migrant crisis destabilizing an empire, it's more the earliest signs of hate begetting hate.
I also think from the sense of the peoples of Northern Europe, the peoples of Germania, the peoples of the Slavic regions coming to Rome is not the reason that the Roman Empire ended and not the reason that the world then went into the Dark Ages. The fact is, history was going to turn in the way it did, and the Romans were never equipped because they weren't clever enough, they weren't prepared enough. How could anyone be prepared to be able to deal
like you said,
with the situations?
All the wealth has been pulled across. Constantinople is known as one of the greatest cities ever built, and that must be because industry and money and wealth and power is pulled.
It was the kingdom.
It's pulled
By
from
this
the
point,
west
it is the
into
it is
the
the
right,
richest part.
into
Exactly.
into
It's,
east.
by this point, it is the richest part of Europe, Constantinople. The Eastern Roman Empire is where all the riches are. There's no one to blame, and to be able to argue why did the empire collapse because it was such a good thing. Also, bear in mind the Roman Empire, for all the good it did, was also built off the back of slaves and conquering people and killing people. Like, it's not like it's perfect. It's a beautiful piece of history because it's so fascinating. But you can't say, "Oh, I love the Roman Empire because of what it did." At the end of the day, it's still imperialist, and imperialism brings a lot of really bad things, and we know that very well because of the British Empire itself.
Great empire, what are you on about?
Mate, when are we going to do the British Empire? That's a fucking three-parter as well.
We already did colonial rule in India.
We've done a few of them, but I feel like we'd definitely do an Empire series. I
big
probably
dive.
did quite well thinking about it. The British Empire, one from
We're
two
coming for a
Brits.
very
Talk about all the shit we did.
patriotic lens, though.
It'd be a bit patriotic, a bit like, what the fuck were we doing? Some of the awful moments. But no, anyway, let's cap this off because we're almost there now. I just said that the year is 476, and that's when the Roman Empire, as we know it, is over. But, of course, the caveat, which many people are probably saying or thinking right now, is that it's not over because the Eastern Roman Empire is still alive and well. The Western Roman Empire is gone, but the Eastern one is still alive, and to be honest, it's fucking doing really well. So they are now known as the Byzantine Empire. But at the time, they always considered themselves the true Roman Empire.
Yeah, born
the
on the
half of
purple,
it,
right?
Exactly, just the half of it that survived. So even hundreds of years later, they never considered themselves a different empire. They were literally the Roman Empire. We were just the lucky half that managed to deal with the situations that were coming at us. And the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, survived for another 1,000 years. In fact, the day it fell is one of the most important dates in world history, and that is 1453.
Yeah,
that is when Constantinople
the Ottomans,
fell to the Ottomans, which, by the way, is its own huge empire.
we'll definitely cover that.
The city of Istanbul has basically only been ruled by like 3 different fucking people this entire time. It's actually crazy.
When I was recently in Korea with my partner, we had a little holiday in Korea, and I met some Turkish people at this pub. As you do as a good Brit, you try and find the most at-home place. You go to a pub in Korea. But I got talking to some Turkish people, and we got talking. I don't know how. Obviously, it's me, so the conversation slightly swayed towards colonialism. And I was saying, the British Empire, blah blah blah. And then they were trying to talk about how bad the British Empire was. But I was saying, hang on a second, you're Turkish. You're by nature imperialists because you were the founding member of the Ottoman Empire. And they were like, no. The Ottoman Empire was great. It was great. People wanted to be ruled by the Ottoman Empire. So then I was like, I don't know enough about the Ottoman Empire to really challenge them. So I went home that night and I was like, in Google, do people like the Ottoman Empire? What was the Ottoman Empire rule like? and let me tell you, people did not want to be ruled by the Ottoman Empire. They were awful. They were so bad. They were maybe worse than we were. They basically raped and pillaged their way across the Balkans. So this guy who might have far more knowledge himself, they loved it. Oh, they loved that pillaging and murdering. Any Turkish fans listening,
yeah, we
love you.
Like I said, it was a very important moment. Constantinople falling to the Ottoman Empire. They obviously renamed it to Istanbul. They changed the Hagia Sophia, the most famous religious cathedral. I'm not sure. They changed it from a Christian cathedral to a mosque. It was the end of Christian rule and the beginning of Islamic rule, which obviously now is a huge influence on the region of the Middle East, the fact that it's now Islamic rule rather than Christian. There's no consensus on when the Middle Ages end, but many historians agree that it is 1453, the year that the Eastern Roman Empire fell to the Ottoman Empire. The very last thing that we could talk about is the Holy Roman Empire, but I'll be honest, I don't think they're really
It's not really Rome related, is it?
Well, it kind of is. So Christmas Day, 800, Pope Leo III declared that Charlemagne is to be restored as the king of the Roman Empire, and the Holy Roman Empire mainly controlled Germany, but other parts of France and Italy for 1,000 years before Napoleon dissolved it in 1806. But I'll be honest, it's not Rome. It's obviously not Rome. In fact, I've got a quote here from the French philosopher Voltaire, which is, "The Holy Roman Empire is neither holy nor Roman nor an empire." So I don't think it's worthy of talking about
it's
it
basically
at all.
the same empire in a way that the Austro-Hungarians are an empire. which
They
is
were
like,
trying to pretend they were that. You know, the Roman Empire's
they're
so
not
cool.
that guy, pal. They're not that guy.
That's like when you see like populists today that try to pretend that they're like the beginning of like the golden age of a certain place, like the Nazis, and they go, "Oh, it's a Reich. We get the Third Reich."
The
First and Second Reich was so good. Now we're bringing it back, baby. This is the one. It's like, yeah, I mean, in a way, it's make America great again. But that's priceless politics, so we'll skip past that.
Stay away from that.
But anyway, by the way, if we were to talk about the Roman Empire as a whole, from the very beginning of Romulus and Remus to the end of the Eastern Roman Empire, with Constantinople falling, that is a total of 2,205 years of some sort of Roman rule across Europe. And to quote Rome's most famous leader, which was Julius Caesar, he said, "Veni, Vidi, Vici," which means, do you know it? This is his most famous quote.
Yeah, but I know it as Veni, Vidi, Vici. I came, I
Yes.
saw, I conquered.
That's right. That's the translation nowadays. But classical Roman is with a W rather than a V and a K rather than a C. So it's Veni, Vidi, Vici is the classical Latin. But you're right. It's I came, I saw, I conquered. That is the most famous Julius Caesar quote, and that's how we're going to end this part
Great way
3
to end. Great way
of
to
the
end.
Roman Empire.
Well done. It's the first 3-part we've done, and the fact I'm still here, despite being a number of beers deep, is nothing short of a Roman miracle.
Miracle.
I feel like I've been crucified myself and reborn as the son of Joe, the son of Rome. So thank you. That was awesome. I'm
the
drunk.
fuck was that?
I'm drunk as fuck.
What the hell is
Right,
that? We
thank
ended?
you everyone for
Fair enough.
listening to us again for this lovely 3-part for the Roman Empire.
Oh, we've got an announcement.
We do have an announcement.
If you've stayed 3 hours, well, I suppose they're 1 hour each week, but if you stayed to the very end of part 3 of the Roman Empire, we're going to start doing episodes every week. We have been planning to do it for a little while now, and we are ready to do it. We've got these episodes bulked up, and we're going to start filming weekly so that we can get episodes out every single week about a certain subject. So, Zaki, I hope you're doing a 3-parter on the Ottoman Empire next. Is that what you're doing?
No, wait, not yet. No, well, maybe. Who knows? I could, but I won't. I'm going to do next time. I'm ready to do some World War II battle, let's be honest.
Oh, God. Kursk, number 2.
Right, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but
you'll see it next week. Whatever
see
he
you next
chooses, you'll
week.
see it next week. And enjoy. All right.
See you guys later. Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.